Yeah, everybody. It's Arkatech Beatz Music Business Podcast. We are your hosts, platinum producers, Arkatech Beats.
Yep.
Where's the fans? Where's the fans? Yo, if it's your first time here, man, welcome to the podcast. Every week, what we do is we talk about music business, tips, resources, um, hacks, you name it, things that help folks, artists, producers, uh, uh, singers, songwriters to just make it a little easier in the music business. Um, did we didn't formally do our what you call it, right? Right.
Introduction.
I'm the host. I'm one of the hosts. Juggernaut.
I'm Mike Trauma D. Welcome,
Hello.
welcome, welcome.
Welcome if it's your first time here. Like I said, we have platinum producers. We've been in this thing for a very long time. Producers and songwriters. And today we want to get into this thing. Um, people talking about, especially a lot of producers talking about like the use of is it cheating to use royalty free loops, samples, MIDI files, etc. in your production? Are you cheating? Some folks think it like it's a it makes you work a little faster. Some folks
Mhm.
feel like, oh, wait, you need to play everything out. You're not a real producer if you don't play every single instrument and key. And we want to kind of get into that and talk about the pros and cons of using it. Like, the pros and cons of using samples, the pros and cons of playing it all out. Let's get into it because we kind of have a little bit of experience in doing both.
Yeah. Just the other day, I was reading some of the comments, and there's a lot of people that do not like the idea of people using loops, trading MIDI files. You know, um, I get it, man. And there's a lot of people who say, "Hey, you're not a real producer if you're doing these things, these little tricks, these little hacks, these little shortcuts." You know, um, but at the same time, it's like I find that kind of strange, when you think about it, because like hip hop, especially, like we've been sampling from it started. I mean, your drum loops were break beats from records, So you sampled the drum loop and built on that. Your biggest records, you know, are, are loops. you know, if we could go back to the Diddy, and even some of the Death Row records. Let's be clear, like Biggie records, from Juicy to I mean the whole catalog just about Hypnotize. Oh, we could go down the line. A lot of Mace records, they were loops. Dr. Dre, like G thing, you know, a lot of them were loops, or even loops that were just replayed, or you know, just parts played on top of loops, or just straight out a loop with nothing added, just a loop, no drums, no nothing, just boom, it's out there, and they rap on top of the loops. So this whole, oh, you're not a producer, or you messing, like I don't get it. And I just think that folks are just scared to change. I think scared to grow with technology, and scared to take on these new ways of doing the same thing, and they just scared of doing it.
You said a whole lot because it's like
It's been
it's
bothering me, man.
it's samples, man. It's samples. Like
It's samples.
there's no way for you to really take urban music and remove samples from it. Samples, interpolations. You know what I'm saying? Like we've always taken bits and pieces from everybody,
Yeah.
right? Now the difference is there's an ecosystem where producers make that specifically for other producers. There's an ecosystem for that now, right? The guys who know how to play, the guys that are like dope at making loops, these guys create the ecosystem, the MIDI files, and they sell those. Now,
But but to be honest, Jug, they've always been vinyl back in the days of break beats.
right?
So that has always been there, but because of the way technology has grown and changed, maybe the format has changed. but there's always been an ecosystem for the producer. You know, the vinyl that's, oh, these are the samples. The vinyl that has the break beats only. The vinyl that has sounds and obscure stuff
That's real. The vinyl
for the
that had the
producer.
horn loops,
Yeah.
the horns,
So there's
other
all,
stuff.
and they were on vinyl. So that ecosystem has always been there. It's just that with technology and as it grows, it's the face of it is just going to look different. Now it's just going to be MIDI files, and it's going to be stems. You know, that's all that's going the change. To be honest with you,
So basically, it sounds like it's an attack or a war on sampling. Like that's what it sounds like. That's what it sounds like to me. But it's kind of like
no,
you can't really diss sampling like it's embedded in the music industry. It is what it is.
um I think there's a gap between producers who have been doing production a certain way for a long time. Um, and you know they may or may not have gotten any recognition, or maybe they haven't gotten any real success. But you know, think about it. For the average person that's trying to be a producer, they've done it the old-fashioned way, where they spend time, spend money, whether buying equipment, uh, taking time to learn how to play a piano, you know, sacrificing their time and doing it that way, right? And they're still at it, you know, making beats a certain way. And then technology happens, and now your average 12-year-old can just click, 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 drag, drop, and boom, got a beat. You know, there's probably a little bit of resentment and bitterness, you know, going on, you know. Um, and my thing is you gotta adapt to technology, man. You gotta adapt, you know, and that's something that we made sure we did in our career. And, you know, Jug, I remember when, you know, we had this conversation and I was being a little bit stubborn in that area because I was stuck on the MPC 2000. I didn't wanna embrace freaking these programs in the computer and you know, for real, me and Jug would go back and forth. And I was like, nah, man, my NPCs, they like Timberlands, man. They like, I gotta be on that. I can't, but you gotta be open minded, especially with creativity and technology advancing. If anything is going to help, if there's anything that's going to add on, you know, you gotta be open minded and be willing to check it out at least. You know, you can't be closed minded when it comes to creativity. Like that's kind of like it doesn't make any sense. So you know the good thing is that I said, all right, let me open my mind a bit and then embrace this technology. And honestly, as soon as we did that, we found a quicker workflow. We were able to get more resources, get records done quicker. um and here was the highlight that for me that did it is when I was saving these records, man. When I opened up them files back, the mixes were already there. Everything was set up for me. My plugins were there. Like I just had to push play, and it was rocking the same way I left it, which was something that wasn't happening back in the days. You saved the joint on the drum machine. When you loaded it back up, hooked up to all your other equipment, you have to go to each sound module, find the sound. So man,
Those are game changers.
it was a game changer. You know what I'm
Like
saying? A super game. I couldn't believe it. I was like, wait a minute. So
those
even
are
I could
game
mix
changers.
something, go to the ride, listen to it for a couple of days, come back, open it back up, and just do my edits from where I left it. Like it was just so many things that were just a whole lot better.
What about to using like masking tape to mark the board so that you can put the same level back and you know
But my
trying
the
to
whole
trying to remember how you EQ'd it and like that's all the analog stuff from back in the day that folks are just not really privy to. But
right.
you,
And the
to your
reason why
point,
I'm just saying that is because it's just as technology moves forward, it creates tools for
Yeah.
us to use. And if you could go ahead and be closed-minded about it, but if you don't take advantage of these tools that are provided for you to do your craft, then you're going to be in a stone age. Because look, if we didn't do it, right after we did that, Jug, we've got multiple additional placements like right away.
Right away. We had to shift, and especially remember when it went from hardcore samples to play out, right? Then we
Right.
had to play out. So now it wasn't a situation where it has to have that sound like, which was coming like, I guess like we say like around Little John's time. Like it
Uh-huh.
had to have that type of play out, and you had to use certain sounds and that type of thing. Like you weren't getting any placements around that time if you were sampling still.
Right.
That's the reality of the situation. Um, because the region that we were from, New York, had just basically gone cold, right? At that point. So it was totally shifted down south. You had to switch. And it kind of goes back to what we were saying before. It's like, you have to switch with the times, you have to switch with the technology. Like now, things like the loop situations now, the MIDI files right now. Like you said, it's this really sophisticated level of sampling. It is just a sophisticated way of just sampling. Like the process for us to sample when we were back in the days it was like a 2-day process, right? You and I would meet up at the record store, be at the record store for hours, going through vinyl, listening to joints, buying the records, spending hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars on records, taking those back, chopping them up, then you and me going back into the lab again, listening to joints again, trying to see what worked, what didn't work, then maybe even trade the vinyl.
Yeah, we trade them.
You
Yeah.
might be going back and forth. Whatever you had, we swap it, and it's like it was that was the process. But now it's like, okay, we search for loops, we search for samples online now.
And you gotta think about like, it was a time consuming,
Hmm.
expensive
Hmm.
habit,
Yep.
because you're thinking about you're traveling to and fro, you're spending hours traveling again. But like it took a lot before you even before you got to make the beat. There was a lot of prep work. And now you could just go down to the basement, click on your computer, go to your favorite site, or if you already have like a kit,
Subscription. Yeah.
whatever, and then you could just search through that, and in the comfort of your home and in your environment, pick something out that you like, and go from there. And for people to be upset about that, is kind of just mind-boggling to me. Like it is such a easier way of creating records. Like I,
So
I don't even.
let me be the devil's advocate. I
Mhm.
play everything. I am the super duper musician. I play every instrument. I play every like for them. They're going to feel like it's more of their art, right? Like I created it from scratch. There's no one else would have what I have. I guess that's the pro of you being able to play all your own stuff is that it's from you, and there'd be nobody else that has that melody, those bass lines, those drums. I
Right.
get it. I get it. Um, so for those folks, I can kind of see where they're coming from to a degree, but you can't really knock the other process because that's always been the situation when dealing with hip hop. There's always been the folks who said that they play everything out and been the folks that sample. It's always been that kind of situation. When you collaborate, it's great. When you don't collaborate, it is what it is. I guess the question that I would say is that why do you think that the people that play everything out have such a strong uh level of
Just
like
taste.
this taste for the folks who are not that don't play everything out?
I think, but because I
You
think
think it's just grandiose? Do you think they're just
I think it's
ego
I think it
driven?
goes back I think it goes back to what I was saying a little bit earlier, where you spend the time and the hours to learn your craft. They take and that takes a lot of discipline. To hours and hours of playing the piano or learning it. Or whatever money you spent to go to a facility to learn that stuff. and you spent time, you spent money on your equipment, and the way of doing things. So I just think that's part of it, right? I think there's a level of um, confidence and the ego and all that because I did this. I took the time out to master my craft. I took the time out to do this. So there's a little bit of bravado there, like I did this. Um, and then when you have technology allowing you to do these things at half the time and quicker and it's easier, you know, if you spent time creating, learning and doing, building up your skill and something of technology comes in, whether it's AI or whatever, you're gonna feel slighted. You're gonna feel like, yo, I spent all this time, learning to play music and spending time to read notes and doing all of this stuff and really spending hours and sacrifice. Some of these people had to sacrifice their, time, relationships, activities, just so that they could be good at what they do. And for a computer program to be able to replicate some of these things quickly for maybe a 12-year-old, I could see why people will be just a little bit like distasteful about it. You know, it's like you're kind of like robbing them. You know, but the way I see it is these are just tools, and it's up to you to decide how you want to use these tools. You can use it to aid what you're doing. You could and go from there. It doesn't take away from you as a musician at all. These are just tools to add on. And if you can merge those two things, if you're a musician and know how to play out music, you could actually use this to your advantage. If you remove the anger, and just being distasteful about the whole thing, you can use this to your advantage, man. This is the market for you. You know, you can create loops. You can create different things that would, make your record sound a whole lot better. So I,
It's
I
it,
think I,
it's
I think it's a creator's market. Period.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree. I would say that it is a creators market. I think there's room for everyone.
Yeah,
Like the people who can create, uh, that can create, they have a lot more options than they did
yeah.
when we
You have a
were when
lot
we
more
were coming
options
up.
and a lot
Yeah,
more opportunity if you're a
yeah,
musician. So to those who feel that way, that they're the musician and these programs are popping up, um, you still have the advantage. You still could get into areas and arenas that a so-called beat maker sequencer can't. You know,
that's
and
right.
I think for a person who's a musician, they just have to just look at the landscape and just position themselves, right, and not close their mind off to technology because it's there to help you to help create things and make your workflow a whole lot of more effective and efficiently. So I'm all for it. You know what I'm saying? I'm all for it.
So the elephant in the room is going to be, you guys are platinum producers. Uh, where are you guys getting your royalty free loops and MIDI
Well,
files and so forth and so on? And
no, not telling you. I mean, that's all, but that's part of hip hop also.
you
Like
not, Mike said, you're not telling y'all.
that's part of hip hop also. Like when you're digging in them crates, and the other producers digging next to you, and he trying to look over, and you're like, nah, like that's always kind of been the fun part of, yo, where'd you get that from? And just looking and digging and searching. Like I think that's always been the real fun part, like of just finding stuff out. Like when you find a loop and then judging like
It's like a treasure hunt, man.
yo, where did you get that from?
You
Like,
get him.
oh, like you know what I'm saying? So, you know, that part of the game, I think, should always be in kind of intact. And if you recognize something, you can be like, okay, I know where he got that from. Oh, I got that record. Oh, but do your research, man. It's not hard to find. There's so many websites that have this stuff, man. And if you've been following us long enough, man, you would already know because we've mentioned it once in a while, in our podcast.
Yeah, we mentioned it. They're like,
So
hey, well, I thought you guys were here to give the resources. How come you guys are not giving the resources? Because
Fox,
I remember us going to different spots in the city, all over New York, all over the place. Um, City Island, right?
mhm,
Different places, all over the places, and it
Lower
was
Lower
like,
East Side,
yeah, it was all over the place, man. Like
Midtown.
standing on your feet swole, like just fingers dusty from just going
Yeah.
through like some archives and stuff like that. And it's like it's different now. But if I had to give some producers one jewel, just one, just one jewel, and this is by no means a uh nah, I ain't gonna do it. I'm like, no, like it's like that's wrong. Nah, I like Splice.
Yeah, especially though.
Yeah, like I like that. Like I like that. That's been a very user friendly platform. There are some others, um, but I think that one is probably the most hassle free
Hmm.
in terms of being able to get what you need to get, and then not having the issues in terms of the content ID type situation. Now, there are some issues with that if you're just a person that doesn't manipulate your samples, but
Right.
as long as you're creative and manipulating your samples, you won't have any problems with that per se. So
Yeah. I think you know again, these are tools, to use. And it comes down to how you use it, because even when you were, like, back in the days, even when you and the next producer got the same record, it really came down to how you were going. Number one, were you going to sample the same thing? And then two, even if you were going to sample the same thing, is it going to sound the same? One producer may chop it a certain way, or even if you guys use the same loop, you may add on different parts to it. Your drums may sound different. So you may have a loop, and this guy made it to sound more boom bap, but this guy made it sound more pop. This guy made it sound, more this or that. So it's all there. It just really comes down to what you add to it, and we
it,
gotta, as a creative, you gotta be creative.
if one thing that comes to mind when you say that, using the same loop at the same time, if you remember, you had the Ja Rule and Ashanti record, right, where
Hmm.
they were doing the Grease impersonation right in the video,
Hmm.
and then the Smile and South Star record or something like that, right? And
Oh, uh-huh.
they had the same loop. Um, it was the same, basically the same loop at the same time.
Hmm.
And you know, the Ja Rule record was done one way, their record was done another way, and they
Hmm.
both were dope records. But of course, at the time Ja Rule was hot as fish grit, so his 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 record
And
with Ashanti went crazy. And
I mean,
they kind of didn't get a fair shake because they had a hit record, but it's just a bad
that
timing.
happens. It happens.
It is what it is.
It
Same joint,
happens.
same time.
And I think what's yeah, even a lot of the records that are coming out now, these are a lot of the records being used now are old records, or records from the '90s, and
Oh
they
yeah,
just they just
especially if it's
resampled.
Hitmaker. 'Cause Hitmaker does that. Hitmaker likes to reach back, and
Yeah,
he likes to take old loops. Like if you think about like maybe like the Young Blue Chris Brown record, right?
yeah,
That
yeah.
that samples an SWV, right?
Right, exactly.
So it's him, because he's at that age. I give Hitmaker that thing. He's at that age where he's kind of been influenced by like late '90s, right?
Right.
So
So
he's able
it was a hit then.
to hit then. So he was able to kind of grab it and reincorporate it and make it into something totally new and fresh. You know what I
And
mean? And that's dope.
that's probably why he was, earlier he was saying he's the new Diddy, because Diddy
Yeah.
was doing the same thing, getting what was a hit before. He was just, if you think about Juicy, Hypnotize, like all of those records, they were all hits. So just redoing them, And I think also, you know, it actually opened us up to the original records. You
Yeah.
know, a lot of these records, these quote unquote hit records of today, we wouldn't necessarily know about them, if our parents wasn't into it. So it definitely opened us up to some of the original records, and it allowed us to say, what else does this artist have? And you go back through their old catalog and you hear things. It's amazing when you dig in, for an old record and you find a sample that was used, and you're like, wow, I didn't know this was a sample. And it's like, wow, this is kind of mind blowing. Even like some of the Dr. Dre records, for the Chronic album and stuff like that. They were you'll find things,
Straight loops, man.
and you'll find stuff, and you're just like, oh, I didn't know. You know what I'm saying? And but that just goes to show, like, when they're redoing this and recreating it and putting it back out, it allows us as producers to kind of find the history, which I think is what I think is dope. It allows us to be a more knowledgeable of music. Because there's a lot of music that we wouldn't know about if it wasn't for these artists resampling them. You know.
So I want to pivot a little bit, right?
hmm
Because we're talking about, you know, legacy artists, so forth and so on. And there was this week there was a little bit of some controversy with regards to, relevancy for older artists. And there were some comments from the 21 Savage that related to Nas as being quote unquote irrelevant, um, and that he only has a loyal fan base and makes dope music. And I wanted to ask, you know, um, what is relevancy for artists in 2022 going into 2023? Like, what does that even look like? And how does an artist um, create the relevancy or keep themselves relevant in today's market where music is consumed so quickly?
Well, I think first of all, I'm just gonna come out and say this. I think Nas is still relevant. You know, I think you know he's done what so many artists have not been able to do, and producers have not been able to do over the years. Which is to adapt to change and to move forward. As a producer, like we were just saying, um, if you're not going to adapt to the change, if you're not going to adapt to technology, if you're not going to adapt to what's new and fresh, then you're going to be left behind. And you're not going to be able to survive. And I think Nas as an artist, he has adapted to what was going on around him, and he, without losing who he is, he's able to get someone who's fresh and new to kind of help him move forward, not just producer wise, but also in his circle. He has got new people to help him kind of just move forward, not just in music, but in business as well. That has helped kind of just keep him relevant. He definitely is doing things music wise and business wise that's relevant to today, I would say. So this whole relevancy issue, I think it really stems from, like, people looking at sales too much. I think people are looking at sales and saying, hey, you didn't sell as much as you did when you were at this time. So they equate that to relevancy. But I kind of feel if you ever could put out music, it still charts high, um, is on headlines and every social media, is making that impact. People are talking about it. People are still selling up, going to your shows. Like, it's like all of these things. I think you're still relevant. If you could do or say something that affects people in a mass, like, look, when he said hip hop is dead, the whole hip hop was up in arms. So I think Nas is definitely still relevant, and he'll continue to be relevant. Sorry, um, as he continues to put out more music.
I think, excuse me. I think what these guys don't understand is that Nas is a nice person. I think if Nas really wanted to, you know, really put his foot on a lot of these artists and really, you know, he can make it so hard for a lot more artists that, you know, I don't think you can find an artist that's more synonymous with hip hop culture than him. He's like literally the poster child for hip hop. Like
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like beyond every other artist. And you have to really think about it. Like, and I think some people are perturbed by like, why does this guy? Because he's the chosen one, man. He's not. That's it. Like, like what he contributed early on in his career with Illmatic and changing the scope of music for hip hop. It just
yeah.
never been the same ever since. And that's just reality of it. So people just can't seem to wrap their head around the fact that he's still doing it. Like, wait, he can still rap like this? People still listen to this? Yes, people still listening to this.
But I think on top of that, like people are so caught up with. Remember when an artist used to be able to drop a record, and as a fan, you would just pick up the record or whatever the case.
Yeah,
Now people are looking at numbers. Like, when did that start happening? Where
that's the 50 Cent era that brought that in. You
So
know what I'm saying?
basically, the consumer now starts looking at the charts, starts looking at Billboard and all of these things to kind of find out if a record is quote unquote hot or not. And it never really used to be like that. You used to hear a record and you would decide if it was hot. But now, it's a different, if it's a different,
Yeah.
ball game.
But remember what 50 Cent used to do, and he used to make that the thing, and the numbers, and then those numbers now translated to now everything is numbers, followers, right? Followers,
Hmm.
streams, subscribers. Now it's always about the number, right? The number is what can make people consider you an influencer. If you're a bigger influencer, if you're a small influencer, what does your follower look like? What does your this look like? What does that look like? So forth and so on and so on. But it's Nas, man. You know, you mean it's like it's going. Drake is going to have that conversation too. You know, over time because I think he's also that next phenomenal talent that comes along once in a lifetime. That they're just who they are, who they are. You know what I'm saying? And they're never going to lose relevancy because of who they are. They don't fall off. You know what I'm saying? That they're just who they are. You know what I mean? And their fans are going to be their fans. Their music is always going to be their music. They're always going to be able to evolve because they're just great at what they do. And I don't know. I kind of understand where he's coming from because he may be looking at it like, yo, like, you know, like you said, the numbers people may not be checking for. But remember with the streaming thing changes first week numbers, right? Before, if you didn't get it in the first week, you probably weren't going to buy it, right? If you didn't get it in the first week, maybe the first month, you probably wasn't going to buy it. With the streaming things, it's different because now everybody has the album, right? Like it's just when do you have the chance to listen to it?
Yeah, everybody
Oh,
has the album already.
right. So everybody already has it. So there's really no urgency for me to listen to it the first week that it comes out. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like I can listen to it whenever, and if it's popping, I'll listen to it for the next 10 years. Right? And like so, like, and this is the thing when you really look at it. Like if you look at like an album cut like New York State of Mind, damn near 100 million streams. Right? Like this stuff doesn't happen with album cuts, and you know what I mean. Like for certain artists, like you have to start looking at this. Like this is a legacy artist that is going to stream all of these songs, every single song for decades. It is what it is. Some people would kill for that type of situation to say that they're not relevant, but it's like
I kind of think he knows better. And he's kind of somewhat trolling.
I wonder if he was trying to low key promote him.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Because he had the record out with Drake. So I think him saying something a little I think him saying something like that kind of helps bring attention, but at the same time, it does speak to people who actually do think that way anyway. So we still have to address it because there are people that feel that way, and one of the arguments was his low numbers, and but there are artists who are quote unquote popping and big names that have the same numbers. Whether it's 20 something thousand first week, 30 something thousand first week, that have the same numbers. So then it makes you like, does that mean that that artist, who's all over the radio, all over the streaming, who's all over everywhere, is that person not relevant? So
It's funny because he doesn't promote these projects. These
that's
projects
a,
aren't promoted. There's
yeah,
no videos. Like there's video here and there, but
yeah. He didn't
he,
even promote it.
he didn't promote it. He just puts it out, and he does it on his own label at this point. It's like it's gonna come out and it's gonna do the numbers. It just don't do the numbers like immediately, in my opinion, but it will do the numbers. I think over time you're gonna see like, okay, all of these projects are gonna be gold or platinum. They're just not gonna happen immediately. Because remember, people would say Illmatic didn't go gold immediately. Remember?
Right? It didn't. Yeah,
Remember? Like
yeah,
Illmatic didn't go gold immediately.
yeah.
Like really? Like like this
So
is the
then,
this is the situation with him. Like his music, like he's a repeat listener. Like he's not somebody that that you're gonna you can take that same logic and apply it to J. Cole and say, oh, he's not relevant because he's not, like, can you say that? Like really? Like
I mean, I think
he's dope.
there's certain artists that create music that is actually timeless. It sticks around. It
Yep.
still matters. Like if you listen to some of the content that Nas is talking, if listeners got a chance to listen to the album, there are things that he's talking about that deal with today's issues, man. Real stuff, real talk. And he's touching on topics that some real mature topics. And those things are very relevant in people's lives. You know, so I guess the question is relevancy subjective?
Oh,
Is it
absolutely, it's subjective because you're gonna be always relevant to who's looking and checking for you. Like like to what he said, to a degree, he got loyal fans. Like this man had loyal fans. Like there's no, you know, if a Nas album comes out, at some point I'm gonna listen to it.
yeah,
At some point, and if I'm rocking with it, you're gonna be in the rotation. You know what I'm saying? That there are some artists that I'm gonna go out of my way to listen to. Right? There's and then there are other artists that's gonna be like, well, when I get to it, we get to it.
yeah. And then at the same time, life gets in the way. It doesn't necessarily mean that the person that are relevant to you as it's just that life gets in the way. And like you said, you already have the album. It's in your pocket.
It's in your pocket.
Yeah, as long as you got a phone, you have the album.
You got the album.
You
Like
know what I
that's
mean? So
it's different now, right?
it's
Like
different.
like I got it. Like before, I had to really make my way to the store,
Right.
go get it.
There was an urgency because if you didn't run to the store to get it, you may not get it.
Right.
So, it may be sold out, so there was an urgency there that kind of made people get up and say, yo, I gotta go get that. I gotta go get that. I gotta have it. And before all a lot of people who actually ran and got the album, it doesn't mean they actually listened to that album that first week that they got it.
Right.
They could have got the CD and it kind of sat up the crib for a day or two before they actually got to it. So, it's different, and there's some level of non-urgency when you already have it on your phone. So
It's real,
I think
man. Like I think that's the main thing. I think what's her name numbers came like Glorilla, right? She was at like about 29K, same thing.
same
You know,
things. Does that make her irrelevant?
and they promoted the hell out of that.
Right. So
So
her and Nas nearly had the same numbers,
and one had promotion and one didn't, but
but
one
one
would say,
didn't.
well,
So
one would, but they would say, well, she's new and he has a fan base, the number should be higher.
Yeah, you know, but she's all over the place. She's getting streams all like crazy. She's nominated for this, and you know, so what's the reasoning? What's the excuse now? You know, so it's like, you know, everything is subjective when it comes to hip hop. You know, when it comes to being creative, and people like what they like. People gonna say what they want to say. You know, it don't matter. Just stay in your lane and do what you got to do. You know, you like what you like. You listen to what you listen to. You create how you create. You know, and if you're unable to open your mind and as a creative, if you're unable to open your mind and kind of just, you know, look around and see what's going on and trying to grow, then you're going to be left behind. You're going to be irrelevant. And I think the big takeaway from, I think, this podcast is being relevant. You know, whether you're a producer or you're an artist, I think you have to align yourself with certain tools that's going to help you stay relevant. And if you don't do that, then goodbye. You're not going to be here much longer.
So I guess the question that I would ask you, and another question again, is, or ask the people, is, people may want to know is, if you're a new artist trying to come in, how do you maintain your relevancy? How do you make sure that you have a career that's going to last past the 5 year mark? Because on average, about 5 years for a lot of folks, and then they're in and they're out. They get a little heat from the record, and then they're in and they're out, and then they're done with. So, how
Yeah.
do you, how, what are some of the ways that artists now can ensure that they can maintain some sort of
Well,
relevancy,
well, Jug,
for the long term?
Jug, that is really the $1 million question that um, every artist has to ask himself, and even some of the most successful artists have had trouble with that. You know, especially when it's time for their sophomore album, trying to follow up and recreate whatever it is that they accomplished on their first go around. And it's not really an easy answer. However, there are still some basics that you should follow. And you know, I think one of the things is, you know, kind of learning the situation, doing some research and learning what the kind of what's next to you and what's around you. Because if you don't know what's your competition, if you don't know what's going on around you, how are you going to place yourself in today's market? How are you going to strategize and market yourself properly if you don't know what's going on around you? You know, you may be putting yourself out at a time where that's not the music that people are listening to. You know, I'll never forget the time when I mean, none of us can uh, forget the time when Big was killed, right? And I believe when we got that news, we were in the middle of recording a record, like a hard street record, and we had to say, man, is this even a good time to put this type of music out with
Yeah.
with you know, death in the air and stuff like that, you know? So um I think just being aware of what's going on around you, is key. And you know, being relevant. You know, if you're not aware of what's going on around you and you're just putting out whatever, there's a good chance that you could be going in the wrong direction. So you got to be aware of what's going on around you, making sure that the music that you're putting out works in today's market, is current, can actually compete, not just quality wise, but just overall vibe and overall sound, like everything, you know. So it takes all of these things, and it's not an easy answer, to be honest with you, because the first album could have been a hit specific only because it was a sunny day the album dropped. You know what I'm saying? It was a sunny day. It was a
Nobody
beautiful
wants to
day.
talk about
The
that
weather was
timing.
great. Like, you got to figure out, one of Ho's album dropped on 9/11. Bad day. I'm not sure which album was it. The Black one of the albums dropped on 9/11. It was like, or that week, and there's a lot of parts of this that you have no real control of. The only thing you have control of is your actual getting in the booth. And even in that sense, what if you woke up with a headache, or you got a bad day, or you go outside, it's raining, it's affecting your mood? What if you had an argument? All these things affect your creativity. So you gotta be aware of your creative space, your creativity, and how you're doing music, man. It's a lot.
It's crazy because I was thinking that the other day, and I was looking at Drake, and he was talking about how his process. It's a process for him. He loves what he does. He studies what's going on, like you
Yeah.
said,
Hmm.
studies what's going on. Um, Pays attention to trends.
Hmm.
Very good at identifying trends, and he's very good at pivoting, right? To kind of
Right.
jump on and jump off of things that maybe hot or cold, so forth and so on. But the thing that stood out the most to me was he stays on schedule in terms of his recording. He doesn't stop recording, and I think that is where
Yeah.
a lot of artists lose. Um, I think he treats it like a muscle, right? He trains it like a muscle,
Mm-hmm.
like a person, like an athlete. He goes in and he uses it like that. If you don't do your shooting drills, your shot gonna be off. And I think he 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 attacks music in that fashion where it's like it's a daily rhythm that he continues to do, regardless of tour, regardless of whatever's going on. Like this is what he does. Period. And I don't think artists have that level of dedication, or they fall into the trap where, I'm gonna do some music now, I'm gonna take a break.
No.
And the more time that you take a break, when you get back, you realize, whoa, I'm dusty.
Yeah.
Whoa, I lost a step. And it happens. Like if you try to step away from this thing and you think you can just kind of jump back in and be exactly where you were, negative. It you lose a step. So I think part of maintaining relevancy is just getting in and getting it done. And I think that's probably what you see happening with Nas in the last 4 albums, like 4 albums in 2 years. Like, whoa.
Yeah.
And it seems like now they're like they're getting better. like like
Yeah.
they're getting better. And I just think, like, because he used to be a person that used to have long gaps in
Right.
between. And
Yeah.
no more. Like no more gaps. It's like we recording them and they going out. And I give
Yeah.
it to Hit Boy, man, because that's what he's 40 records in? Damn near.
I mean,
That's a
consistency,
lot on
man.
a producer.
Consistency, man. Like, I guess, as far as relevancy is concerned, being consistent is another part of it. Like staying on a schedule. Learning your craft and staying consistent. So when you have those days when you're not feeling well, or the sun is shining a certain way, you're able to pivot. You know how to deal with it, because you're gonna have days when you're off, and that's okay. The key is to have more good days than bad days.
Yeah.
So if you're being consistent, constantly recording, constantly getting better, you're going to have more good records than bad records to choose from. And I think, uh, to be relevant, that's another thing you got to do. Number one, pay attention to what's going around. Number two, being consistent with your recording. And look to continue to get better and continue to grow. Number three, I would say, don't frown on new things. Don't frown on new technology. Don't frown on new styles, new trends. Don't frown on it. Look at it and say, you know what? Let me see if there's a way I could implement that into what I'm doing, and see if it works. It may work, it may not work. But just being open minded allows you to create new things that can continue to keep you relevant. I love the what Griselda's doing. You know, with the music that they're doing. You know, it has a touch of that old '90s, but at the same time, it doesn't sound now '90s at all. It sounds current. It sounds today. So hats off to that whole Griselda, because I think that's another idea. That's another thing. That's showing some type of relevancy in today's music. You do not have to change who you are to be relevant. Let's be clear.
That's
You don't have
real.
to. You don't have to change who you are. You don't have to 100% change the type of music that you're doing. But what you have to do is whatever you're doing, it has to be current with today's sound. It doesn't mean you got to make trap. You got to make drill. But you have to think about, okay, how is this going to work with the format? Is it going how's it going to sound mix wise? Is the quality up to par? Is it going to sound dated? Is the subject matter relevant for today and tomorrow? Like, don't rap about something you know that clothing is not what nobody's wearing now. Don't date it. And um it's interesting that I've heard some old records and I'm just like, damn, this record's old because
It
of
made
the
it made reference to
a
the time,
reference
to
to
some. Yeah,
some old clothing, and I'm like, damn, you can't even release that or re-release it per se. But if you're current with today and you current, you can continue to put out music and it'll be timeless. I think subject matter is very important in that area as well. So
it's funny when you talk about the Griselda folks too, because I like what these guys are doing. Um, and to your point, you can kind of do you, and then just sort of incorporate just the nuances of the things that are currently going around. Like you
right,
said, to kind of give it a hint of, that you have your finger on the pulse. You don't necessarily have to divert from what you're doing entirely, but it's always good to, like you said, kind of keep your eyes out on what the trends are, taking a portion of that, taking a smidgen of that, just kind of putting a little bit into your mix a little bit, so that folks can kind of feel like, okay, this person has kind of got their finger on what's going. And then kind of also trying to dictate where the trend goes. I think that's also, if you're really good at what you do, you make the trend, right?
right,
If you're really that good, um, because then people will follow you. So if you're the trendsetter, in most cases, you don't have to worry about relevancy. You're the trendsetter, right? You're always creating the trend, so it just kind of depends. But yeah, man, Nas is still relevant, man. I don't know why anybody else would say anything different. You know what I'm saying? Like, it shout out to them though. They got a dope album, 21 and Drake. They got a dope album. Kings of D's 3 out there, dope album. You know, just different stuff, right?
yeah. I mean, there's different stuff, for different strokes for different folks. Like, you gonna like what you like, but the key is just, again, what I want people to take away from this is just, you know, in order to be relevant, you got to continuously keep working and keep putting out content.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter who you are, or it doesn't matter what area you fall in. If it's a producer, if it's an artist, if it's a writer, if it's whatever it is you do, you got to keep putting out product. You got to continue keep, like, just like Kobe. You got to be in that gym. You got to be in that gym, shooting them shots over and over again. And perfecting your craft. And if you perfect your craft well enough, you'll be able to do some amazing things. Without that, then eventually you'll be irrelevant, and you'll fall off the map. And what happened to that guy? So
Oh, no, that's crazy. But it's the Architect Beats Music Business Podcast, folks. Make sure you're following us at Architect Beats. Uh, Everything Architect Beats, social media Architect Beats. If you haven't already, like, comment, and subscribe. Please do so. Like, comment, and subscribe on this video. Um, any parting words for our esteemed guests?
stay relevant.
And don't be afraid to pivot, man.
Yeah,
Like you said, like everything is a pivot, and even what we're doing is a pivot. It's it's,
yeah.
it's a pivot. Like you add these things on to what you're currently doing, and
Grow.
it's growing.
Like,
You know,
don't be scared of growth. You know what I'm saying? Don't be scared of learning new things and adding on to what you already have, because all of these things are resources and tools to help you to continue grow and to accomplish bigger goals, bigger dreams. So Don't when you see something new, something different, don't immediately be like, nah. Just take a second, look at it, and see if it's something that you can add to your situation to make things better and easier for you.
That was a jewel right there, son. You did it. That was a good jewel right there. You know what I mean? But until next time, folks.
Peace.
Peace.